The French 75 insurgent group is planning to act against the government. All detained immigrants are loaded onto a cargo container. Pat is tasked with firing the fireworks. Their target is to break into a prison near the border to rescue detained immigrants. The revolutionary group splits into two prongs to attack the immigrant detention camp. Meanwhile, the container begins loading. During the operation, Steve secretly falls in love with Perfidia at first sight.
I'm Captain Stephen J. Lockjaw.
Perfidia orders Steve to tie himself up and lock himself in another area. Pat triggers the fireworks once Perfidia signals that Steve has been captured. After the successful rescue, Pat and Perfidia begin planning their next targets, focusing on banks. Perfidia is the one who carries out the attacks, applying pressure after each call. Pat and Perfidia continue their assault on the power grid. Steve secretly observes Perfidia holding the police at gunpoint. A dual mission is prepared, aimed at a police headquarters. This attack is split into two prongs at two different restroom locations in the building. Perfidia is completely unaware of this. Unexpectedly, Steve follows them and runs into Perfidia in a restroom. Steve asks to have his gun and hat returned at an address he provides. After the encounter, he lets Perfidia go. But Pat's lover never expects to betray him. She secretly goes to Steve's house, and what happens next is inevitable. Sometime later, Perfidia becomes pregnant. But Pat has no idea that the child Perfidia is carrying is not his. The birth of the child changes both of their lives. The child's birth becomes an obstacle to Perfidia's revolutionary activities, and her family seems opposed to the child's presence. Perfidia dislikes the idea of family life with a child. Pat refuses to let her leave. Perfidia wants to continue the revolution, while Pat wants a stable life as a family. But she is determined to leave him and continue the revolution. Steve pretends to take an interest in Pat's child, pretends to ask Pat about the child to extract information about the baby named Charlene.
You like black girls?
Perfidia and her group launch an attack on a bank. Her group plans to rob a bank to fund the organization. The bank guard refuses to comply with Perfidia's demands, and she opens fire. But the mission fails. The bank alarm forces the group to flee immediately. A chase through the streets follows. Their car loses control and crashes into another vehicle. Perfidia escapes with the police right behind her. Perfidia is arrested. She is captured and taken to a treatment room. Steve visits Perfidia, and she is released without going to prison. However, in exchange, she must become Steve's lover, where Steve forces her to reveal the remaining members of the organization.
Don't do this.
Completely change her identity, cut all contact with her former comrades, and she is given a house. Perfidia must sign papers to gain her freedom under a new identity. Pat now has to face a police manhunt. The insurgent group provides Pat with an internal scanning device for close-range detection, along with new identities for both father and child. The new identities are Bob, and the child is Willa. Shortly afterward, Bob leaves Perfidia's house. One by one, members of the French 75 group are arrested and taken in for interrogation. Steve hunts down and suppresses the remaining splinter groups of French 75. Steve does not hesitate. Every rat is hunted down or eliminated by him. After these battles, Steve is awarded a medal for taking down several members of French 75. Steve returns to the house he bought for her. There is no response to his knock, so he breaks the door open with a hammer. A message is left for him, and Steve is not pleased by it. Perfidia refuses to accept it. By this time, Perfidia has fled to Mexico. 16 years later, Bob's daughter, Charlene, now lives under a new identity as Willa. Willa is studying martial arts with Sensei. Bob meets her teacher and proudly speaks about Willa. Is evaluated as one of the top students in the class, a confident leader, energetic when she goes to school, which deeply moves Bob. Bob hides his emotions and lies to the teacher about the child's mother. Skinner reports to Steve that the director of development wants to meet him. Steve is preparing for an important meeting. He meets a figure from the shadow political elite. At exactly 6 p.m., Steve gets into his car and goes to a hotel. This important figure considers bringing Steve in as a member of the Christmas Adventurers organization. He demands absolute secrecy during the initial phase for a serious evaluation. Steve volunteers to join. Steve hires Avanti to kidnap Howard in order to locate Bob and Willa, and his subordinates begin extracting information about Bob and Willa's whereabouts. Shortly afterward, Steve learns that they are living in Backtan Cross. Steve launches a raid in Backtan Cross. Willa is taken, and Bob is meant to be eliminated. Bob remains completely unaware that Steve is searching for him and his child. Willa expresses concern about her father, as he often drinks heavily and drives himself home. A conversation between Bob and Willa is interrupted when Willa's friend arrives to take her to a party. Willa's friend comes to pick her up for a school party. Bob makes her carry an SOS device so he can feel reassured. Thanks to that device, Rochelle locates Willa in the restroom and pulls her out of the school just as the police arrive. Bob is informed that Steve is on site and has raided the school. Worried, he asks for the rendezvous point to find out where his daughter is. Bob continues making calls to request a rendezvous location but cannot remember the internal passcode. But the phone call suddenly cuts off. The raid discovers a hole, and a tear gas canister is deployed. Despite the burning in his eyes, Bob manages to escape. After rinsing his eyes, Bob looks for a place to charge his phone but can't find one. He tries calling again to ask for the rendezvous point, but he can't remember the organization's passcode. Bob secretly seeks out Sensei for help while police flood the entire area. Not knowing where Willa is, Bob desperately searches for a place to charge his phone to learn her location. Sensei leaves just in time, bringing both of them back to his place. Shortly afterward, the police raid Sensei's dojo. Only then does Bob realize that his daughter has a phone, something he never allowed her to use because it could expose where they live. Steve's manhunt for Bob and his child turns Sensei's neighborhood into a police-saturated zone, sparking resistance among immigrant communities against the government. Bob still can't find a place to charge his phone, while Sensei quickly evacuates all the immigrants through an underground tunnel leading to a church. Once Bob finally gets power for his phone, he keeps calling, but still can't access the rendezvous point, simply because he forgot the password. Just as the police storm Sensei's residence, Bob manages to locate his child at Sisters of Brave Beaver. The front doors are violently forced open as police flood the building. Bob and Sensei split up to escape. Bob fails to keep up with the group assigned by Sensei. He crashes into a tree, falls into an alley, and is arrested shortly after. Sensei soon learns of Bob's capture. Willa knows nothing about her mother's past and has always believed her mother was a hero, until Rochelle tells her the truth. The police interrogate Willa's friends, who reveal her phone number. With her location compromised, Rochelle throws her phone away. Steve learns Willa's whereabouts and immediately sets out. Willa reaches her destination, where the nuns offer her a job in the kitchen and a place to stay. Steve's scandal involving a mixed-race child threatens to damage the Christmas Adventure organization. To contain it, they hire assassins to eliminate both Steve and the child, Willa. Bob is arrested, but luck is on his side. A doctor who knows him falsifies medical records and helps him escape police custody. Sensei picks Bob up and drives him to Sisters of Brave Beaver, where Willa is hiding. Steve interrogates someone at Backtan Cross and extracts information about Willa's hideout. Steve captures Willa and orders DNA tests on both of them to confirm she is his daughter. Once confirmed, he calls a car and takes Willa with him. Bob and Sensei are clocked for speeding, Triggering a police chase, Sensei decides to drop Bob off while they're being pursued. Sensei is arrested, while Bob steals a car and continues toward Willa. Bob sees Willa being forced into a vehicle. He opens fire, exposing his position, and immediately chases Steve's car. In reality, Steve wants to erase all evidence of having a child without getting his own hands dirty. He hands Willa over to the assassin Avanti to destroy the evidence, but Avanti cannot do it, especially when it involves a child. As a result, Steve orders Avanti to deliver Willa to another assassin. Meanwhile, Bob asks for directions at a crossroads and soon spots Steve's car not far ahead. Steve runs into an assassin sent by the Christmas Adventure organization. After completing target number 1, the assassin returns to look for Willa. When Bob finally catches up, he finds Steve's car flipped upside down, far off the road. Bob frantically searches the wreck for Willa, then immediately pursues the assassin's vehicle. At the same time, Avanti brings Willa to the drop-off point and waits inside the car. He returns to remove her handcuffs and...
Hey, fuckstick, what are you doing? That firewire's got you fucking retarded.
Willa escapes and gets into the car, but it won't start. She decides to run back and retrieve the remote key. While fleeing, Willa notices a vehicle following her, unaware that it belongs to an assassin sent to clean up Steve's mess. Willa sets an ambush at the top of a slope. The assassin crashes into her car. As he steps out,
Beverly Hillbillies at Hooterville Junction!
I don't know.
Bob arrives moments later. Father and daughter reunite and escape together. Steve survives and walks back on his own. His survival is the one thing the Christmas Adventure organization never wanted. Steve is questioned again about the mixed-race child. He neither denies nor confesses, instead portraying himself as a victim, citing his relationship with Perfidia. Sandy pretends to inform Steve that he has been approved to rejoin the organization and leads him into a room. However, it is a trap. Sandy intends to kill Steve by locking him inside a sealed chamber filled with toxic gas. Shortly afterward, 2 staff members escort Steve to be cremated. Bob gives Willa her mother's letter. When she is ready, she can meet her mother. In the letter, her mother sends a kiss to Bob. Willa continues the revolutionary path her mother once followed. The question remains, does Bob know that Willa is not his biological daughter?